So so hello everybody. Welcome to today's Tavola Aperta. We have a wonderful table full of people. The Tavola Aperta is one of the three special projects of this year's 57th International Art Exhibition, Viva Arte Viva, curated by Christine Massel, who we have the honor and pleasure to have here with us today, together with the two other projects, which are the artist's practice video and Unpacking My Library. The tavola is a lunch, so please don't feel shy because we have microphones and we're having a conversation, eat. And also, I hope you will all take part in this conversation because we don't want it to be a dialogue just between me and the artist. Our guest today is Yee Sookyung. I hope I pronounced that well.
Perfect.
Thank you. She is a Korean artist based in Seoul, and she is exhibiting in this year's show with two main works. One is Translated Vases, 9 Dragons in Wonderland, which is exhibited in the Corderia here in the Arsenale in the Pavilion of Tradition. And the other is a performance that took place during the opening week of the Biennale, I think on the 9th of May.
11th of May.
11th of May? Okay. In the Giardini.
The performance.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Of course. And it was entitled Chasing the Sun's Orbit. Yee Sookyung, she uses ancient techniques, but also a very contemporary language. And she alternates different techniques, painting, sculptures, performance, in a dialogue between tradition and experimentation. And in the work she's exhibiting here at the Biennale, she uses an ancient technique of repairing broken pottery and broken ceramics, but in a completely new and different way. So I would like to start by asking you to tell us something about the work that is here in the Corderia, and how did it start? How did you get the idea? Where did you start from?
Okay. So the title of the work that I present at the in the Arsenale is 9 Dragons in Wonderland. And I inspired the title from Chinese myth about 9 sons of the dragon. And it's hybridized from the homogeneous dragon.
Yeah.
And it means that the heavenly dragon king mated with 9 different animals such as lion, goat, even fish and snake, and even a dog, the animals on earth, and all are very interesting characters, and also they permeated into earthly spaces and with operating a magical power. So, and the dragon is considered as a very, heavenly and positive and really, how can I say, really like a super king, among East Asian countries, and especially in Korea, the dragon is considered as a king. So in a certain period of time, I heard that the image of the dragon was not allowed to use, not by the king or not for the king, but the images of the 9 sons of the dragon was placed in the daily life and in the residential spaces. For instance, like 4 corners of the top tops or some tops of the bells or even on tombstones. So and for me, you know, the 9 dragons is like a metaphor for art. So I want my artwork to be considered not as a homogeneous dragon, but as comparable to the 9 sons of the dragons, you know, in a way to deliver the magical moment to the audience in an accessible way. And what I want to say is the 9 sons of the dragon, 9 sons of the dragon is from the series of my work, Translated Vase. And Translated Vase is a sculpture reconstructed from a ceramic fragments and combine them just like a jigsaw puzzle and the gold over the crack. And the fragments are produced by, the ceramic masters who reproduce the old Korean ceramics, and they destroy amount to more than 70% of the product to keep the rarity and value of the masterpieces. And from that period, you know, I obtained a chance to intervene to fabricate the fragments with my own translation. So that's a brief production of the work in the Arsenale.
And you use a specific technique, which is kintsugi.
Kintsugi, yeah. So lots of people ask me the relationship, you know, between my technique to kintsugi. But actually, there's no relation, you know. So I cover the same with 24-karat gold leaf because in Korean word, gold and crack both sounds same, the kum. So I can say it's my wordplay or it's my humor. And when I started the work in 2001, I didn't know anything about kintsugi technique. And you know, after the Japanese occupation period, the Korea, you know, for a long time there was no, you know, exchange in culturally and whatsoever. So I didn't know about the technique. I just covered the same because, you know, it's a kind of really opposite value. So I covered this crack in the wounded ceramic with something value of gold. And I heard that so in the past, the Korea in China, we used to use the chipped or slightly broken or cracked ceramics, but now in Korea, we just threw it away. We just you know, don't use it in daily life. And when a guest is served a food on the chipped or cracked ceramic, it means that it's a bad treatment of the guest. So, and
But one thing is that
Christina, please.
I found really interesting in your work is that the result is extremely beautiful and I mean astonishing in a visual and a perceptual way of approaching the work. But if you think about it, it's about destruction. The first methodologic approach is that you are collecting. You are a collector of ceramics somehow, of old ceramics. So you go to collect the ceramics. Then you destroy them.
No, never.
They are broken.
There's a
They are broken.
You know, if it's not broken, it's extremely expensive. I cannot acquire, you know, any of those. It's extremely expensive. So so that's kintsugi is really there's a technique of.
But I mean, can you explain?
Okay,
how you get this these elements of ceramic which
okay,
are
explain
broken
it.
and that you restore. So
Yeah.
somehow you repair something that was existing before, and you
Okay.
use something that is missing a part of it to create something, which is, I think, conceptually a very interesting
Okay.
statement about the old and the new, about creation and destruction.
So then
Sorry to be so Manichaean.
thank you so much. And my explanation is going to be a little bit long, but anyway.
We have time.
We are there for you.
And actually, the translated vase series was initiated in Italy for the Albisola International Ceramics Biennale. So it was organized by 2 curators from Albisola.
Famous place for ceramic in
In
Italy.
Italy.
Yeah, exactly. So the Biennale invited international artists to Albisola to and then allow them to collaborate with local ceramic studios. So for the project, I brought a poem praising the 백자, praising white vase, white traditional Korean white vase. I took the poem, so written by Kim Sang-wook in 1946, I remember, and I brought it to the local ceramicist named Anna Maria. Anna Maria, hi. Hi, Anna Maria. Thank you so much. And I asked her to craft 12 vases in the way of Joseon Dynasty style, after reading the poem, and based on her own imagination. So very beautifully, she created 12 hybrid Joseon Dynasty style vases. And then before then, I was not very much interested in white vase, something traditional, treasure things. And when I returned to Korea, I had a chance to visit the master's studio who recreates the Joseon Dynasty style porcelain. And upon my visit, I encountered the scene of him smashing his own pots with imperfection. As I told you, amount to more than 70% of the product. It was such a, so impressive. Yeah. So under his, with his permission, I took some of the broken ceramics to my studio, and I placed them on my work table. And until one day, absent-mindedly, I began piecing them together. So that's the starting point. And I'm interested in something broken, failed, or ephemeral things. Yeah. Something, I found even spirituality or sublime beauty in something which is disappear very quickly. And the broken state provide me a chance to intervene, but that is not about mending or fixing. It's part about, I can say, celebrating the vulnerability of the object and ultimately myself. So I don't think there is something to be mended. That's what I learned from the process of my work. So it's more like,
it's more like a construction.
More
it's
like
building something new.
Yeah, developing new narratives and new stories with my own translation. So I can say that's more like how can I say? Yeah, from the beginning, I failed so many times, in translated verse series, because I tried to to form a certain form which is in my mind, but I failed and failed and failed. And one day I realized that, oh, I was wrong, because, you know, it's already broken and it's not flexible object. So from then, like a moment to moment, I try to be in present, moment to moment. So, so now I learn the different way of making art, different way of working through the translated VAS series.
Can I ask two questions? I wanted to ask two questions. One is a general one, and one is a specific one. What would you say was your deepest original impulse to be an artist? What made you know, which I assume at some point you knew, that your life would not be complete unless you were creating?
Well, I'm the only contemporary artist in my whole family. I think my father was talented in art, especially in literature, but he was not rich enough to continue because he had to support his family. And I was really, you know, shy, very timid, and very fragile girl when I was young. And both of my parents are really, really busy. They are so busy all the time. So most of the time, you know, I spent when I was young, like, you know, only making drawing. And I asked my mom, she, you know, sent me to a private atelier when I was 10. And I found my talent. So I was really lonely child, and I wasn't very much cared. But at the time, you know, I got lots of attention. Wow, yeah, you're so genius. You're so talented. You have to be an artist. So I took it as my faith. So that's how I become an artist, I think. There was no question during my whole life, and so I rely on, you know, art when I'm really depressed. You know, making art that really helps me to cheer up, and when I'm really so excited, then the good energy brings more interesting ideas. So,
Do you think it also serves in some way to help you to deal with death, that you're leaving something behind after you don't exist physically anymore?
oh, that's really heavy and very. That's not the proper. I don't think I can properly deliver what I don't think I can reply.
Okay.
But would you tell me your opinion? Because
well,
you are. I think you look professional in that field.
You know, Orson Welles actually said that was the ultimate vulgar vanity, to think that you lived on permanently through your art. But I don't necessarily feel he believed that. Anyway, I don't know. Everything is going to end, including the planet. You know, if nothing else happens in the next month or two to blow up the Earth, the sun is going to incinerate the Earth in 5 billion years anyway. Yeah, but the main thing is to feel there's something larger than yourself. I think that you're creating something outside yourself that's bigger than you are, which is a good feeling, to put it mildly. The second question I wanted to ask you was about the Renaissance. I mean, here we are in Venice, which is one of the three great capitals of Renaissance art. And do you feel, let me put it this way, what, if any, connection do you feel your art has to the art of the place we are now sitting in, and in particular in the Renaissance, which was the great era of Venetian art?
Okay, so, you know, actually, I really want to be a painter. You know, my goal is to be a painter in the later life. But that always I feel, you know, very often I feel really inferior, because, you know, during my school days I saw so many like Renaissance, like Western paintings, and it was I realized it's really hard to compete. So you know what? From 2014, I started the painting series. Regression painting for the past life regression painting. So it was, there were many of experimental, works, and even, also really beautiful works you already Western people did. But I really love the medium, like a canvas in oil or acrylic. So I did the once a month. I did a past life regression by a hypnotherapist, and so in 2014, once a month, I did the past life regression. So I saw lots of visions and very interesting things because, and the reason I did also is the reincarnation is one of a really significant issue among East Asian countries. So, for instance, when something bad happened to me, then I really want revenge. But most of the elderly, wise people counsel me like, oh, take it easy. You just receive it because probably you did something bad in your previous life to him. And I really couldn't understand, and I really couldn't accept. So I really wanted to see what is the. First of all, I wanted to see what was oppressed, in my unconscious, and also I really want to excavate, what's the reincarnation, what's the past life. So, oh my gosh, what was his answer? Sorry, I got lost.
We forgot the question.
But anyway, so, well, okay,
So tell us something. You're talking about the elderly people and all this thing about their reincarnation and the fact that they, in a certain sense, live in. We were speaking before the table today. They live in a very traditional, still way, while the younger generations are more into this sort of Westernization of culture in Korea. So how is society now? How do these two things live together?
Right, but when I was an art school student in 1980s, there was no internet, there was no the Western TV broadcasting at all. So the only way to learn about Western philosophy and art was only through books. And at the time, lots of the books were not properly translated. Okay. So, for instance, when I read several books over and over and over, I couldn't get it. So, I think I feel the gap with my imagination. Okay. So I think I became really creative, and I acquired my own creative point of view while contemplating on each page, no matter how far I reach for the fact and how much I understood. But nowadays, in this global context, we all use global images. Yes, so I don't think there are a big gap between West East and because the geographical borders and also cultural borders, even time, time orders are becoming more vague. So, and.
But then I would say on a more pragmatical way. Can you tell us what's your daily routine or not? I mean, you go to your studio, you have a team with you. How do you work practically? You take a truck to to take some ceramics around, as we see in the film you have made on your practice on YouTube. So just let us know, as an artist, what do you do every day?
Well, I have a very routine and simple and humble lifestyle. I wake up like 8:30, around 8:30, and then
That's very interesting to know, because I recently read a book about writers. They wake up very much early than artists.
oh really?
5, 6,
Oh my gosh.
Artist, it's always after 8, so you are in the
Middle.
middle.
So I wake up like 8:30 to 9 and start working from 9. Firstly, I check my email and reply to the email.
Like everybody.
and then check the news, what happened, and then working until
You have a
yeah,
studio,
I have a
physical studio?
physical studio, and then I have and my residential space is combined.
Okay.
So you live where you work. And
Exactly.
that's not too difficult.
It's difficult, but up to now it's more practical than having a separate. So, and at 12 have lunch, and 6 have dinner. Very punctual.
You have a routine.
Yeah, very routine. And the Saturday and Sunday, sometimes still working, and sometimes like reading or chatting with my friends. So I have a
Drawings also, because, for example, what we didn't talk about is about your performance. This was the performance you did for the opening of the Biennale, which is, I think, something that is linked to your sculpture in the sense that it's ephemeral. And it's bringing together the past of a tradition, of an old dynasty of Korea, sort of
Yes.
dance, that you have reinterpreted it
Yes.
in a contemporary version, which is also what you do with the ceramic. But it's totally ephemeral. We can see that on YouTube, actually. And for this, for example, the way you work is like you make drawings and you begin to research to find this very muscular body.
Christina, can you take the microphone?
I mean, so, and you repeat with the dancer, and you also design
Yes, I
the
design.
dress and everything. So that's also something different in your practice. Maybe you can explain us
okay. Yeah.
your interest into performance and how you produce the piece.
Okay. So I learned how to dance, how to sing in this genre, the Korean traditional performance genre for 3 years. And the performer, the dance performer, she's my teacher. She's gorgeous. I've been collaborating with her, since 2011, and I produced all of the ornament in the performance at my studio, and so
Yes, please take it.
So-
And what does it has a very curious title, Chasing the Sun's Orbit.
okay.
What does
So chasing the sun's orbit consists of installation and Korean traditional dance and Korean vocal, and alongside bodybuilders and contemporary music. And it's actually among traditional things, I'm very much interested in the uncanny beauty of fixed tradition. So
The two bodybuilders,
they
they
build-
were like
They were
so
wonderful.
I invite them as the
Why?
opposite, like
Like
hyper feminine characters, and also I need some balance, like yin and yang,
yeah.
like light and shadow, and their role in the performance is, framing the performance
Potete farlo girare.
or protect the like a guy
Like bodyguards.
bodyguards to the tradition. So they are simultaneously making a bodybuilding poses. So
Which was funny.
Yes.
It was very funny. It was because they were like so big and they were like doing like. So it was. I would say again, this was something in common with the sculpture. Is you are really working on this idea of the tradition and how to reinvent it. And it's not so. Maybe in Asia, it's a more common thinking, but in the Western world, tradition was the thing that should have been avoided.
right.
And now there are more artists who are asking this question of being a sort of archaeologist, or because they don't care anymore about this modernist.
Right.
Thing that one should get rid of the tradition. And then now there is a meeting point between the Occidental tradition and the Asian one, which is very interesting because it comes from different stories.
Right.
Where do you situate yourself in this
Well,
issue? Which I think is very important to the
Okay.
art, contemporary art right now.
So few years ago, one of the art critics described my work as a redemption of the destroyed Korean tradition. So I was a little bit embarrassed. I apply broken ceramic fragments and Korean traditional like a performance as a small fragment from the past. But we tend to believe that the past exists exactly in that way. But I don't think so, because lots of the interpretation of the past, and especially the culture, is contaminated by power. So I just apply I find so many times I was so mesmerized by the fixed, like and I really love the doll-like makeup, and also the spicy colored outfit of the gyeobangchum, the Korean traditional dance by female entertainers, and sometimes I find they just like elaborate the automatic robot only delivering refined and really refined the sentiments, but I found something really provocative, like a very sexual thing in their gestures. And it's, for me, the word is fragmented. It's all overlapped and tangled, and it's all mixed. But among them, I try to find something like a I try to find
A structure.
structure, yeah, of real.
Put all these layers together, you mean?
Not together. I just wait until it gets, like fermented and tangled and organically mixed up in me, and then wait to coming up as a interesting and surprising idea. So, yeah.
Yes, please. There's a question there and there.
Yes, I'm a student from Korea, but I won't understand Korea, so I'll speak in English.
Thank you.
So I have a lot of questions, but first, I want to ask. We had you had a conversations about the traditional Korean arts, and I think one of the main reason why the Asian traditional art can't develop in Korea is because, like for example, I'd say making a vase, it takes a lot of time, and you have to learn it from your own teacher, and you have to live with them and such stuff. And I think Korean students won't do traditional art, or the style itself is more like Western art. So it's like the style is, it's very similar to Western contemporary art. So what I want to ask is, what's your concerns about that kind of situation now going on in Korea? And do you think it's meaningful to preserve that kind of Korean traditional styles by work? I want to hear your opinion.
Okay. So the first time when I had an idea about the Ivy Solar piece, that was from my rebellious, attitude, because in 1970s and 1980s, the Korea was, under the severe military dictatorship, and I think it's my personal own, idea that the government, the the military government, they found the model to justify their regime from Joseon dynasty, like a neo Confucianist kingdom. Yes. And the Baekja is like a white vase. It was one of the symbol of the Korea for them, and then educate us. Okay, this is the number one in the whole world, and it was used as a the symbol of homogeneous country to enhance the patriotic spirit. And
there is a political meaning then on you acting on a vase.
Yes, but
I mean that understand
and
because we don't.
meaning.
So, but when I initiated, but at the beginning, so okay, I took the notion of white vase to Italy and made a hybrid vase, because I'm interested in the not appreciating object itself, but finding the hidden images, also the narratives behind. That's really important. But my works in the tradition section. So, it was really
my fault.
No, not your fault. Thank you so much, because I had a time to contemplate how can I connect my artistic urge to my disappearing culture. But finally, I realized that world is changing. Some species are extinct, and I'm not willing to devote my artistic urge to preserving disappearing culture. Yeah, but so that's the I'm not really interested in that the vase should be, the technique should be preserved. But so the problem is we just think the past in the box, and projecting very boring and conventional notion over it. So just let them go, let them do that, let them find their own orbit from the inside of themselves, and from the light. So there's a division, like art and craft, or tradition and contemporary. I'm not interested in that kind of rigid boundaries. So there might be someone who really want to learn like how to make Korean vase. Even Italian or French can come over to learn.
Yes, absolutely. I think. So.
And can I ask you a second question?
Of course.
Yes,
please.
There's a various type of vase following the dynasty of the whole Korea history. Like for example, what you said, the Baekja is one of the Baekja's dynasty's main vase, and I want to know. And Yeah, it was Joseon dynasty. Actually, the Baekja is Joseon dynasty, and I think the very historical issue is being come in your works because sometimes you use Baekja, but you sometimes use Cheongja, which is much old dynasty of Korea. So
Yeah, even I use Buncheong and Hugyu, like a black lace.
Yes, I also wanted to ask you before tell us where
But what is the
pottery
question?
comes from.
So my question is, when you do your works with the broken vase, is there any political intentions about the history with Korea? That's my question. And the second question is, what's your favorite style of vase in the dynasty of the whole Korea?
But recently, I'm so mesmerized by Cheongja, like a celadon. It's really beautiful. I used to use for a special occasion, like a ritual ceremony, and it has lots of decorative parts. So I'm very interested in. And from the beginning of the translated vase, I had I was young, and
You still are.
I was young, so but I have been working in this work, how many years? Like more than 12 years, like 15 years, more than 10 years. And now the starting point is fragment. So when I think about vase, the starting point is dust. And dust mixed up with water and shape, the hard shape. And fire twice, and it becomes totally different matter. And when it's broken, it has lost its function and value, but it is released from being damaged, and also especially the reproduction of Korean the old ceramic looks really stressful for me. So when it's broken, it released from the danger of being destroyed, and also released from the being a reproduction. So I am so then I can start do my translation of the pieces. It's more like a learning of the word through putting the ceramic fragments about the metaphysical structure of the reality, which is which eventually tells me everything is perfect.
Yes, please.
I would like to ask you about
A bit louder.
Yes. I would like to concentrate in not period or some process to make a portrait. Just want to concentrate it in the attitude toward the perfectionism to make a portrait. So all the fragment is coming from caused by the attitude toward the perfectionism. But when you will make a sculpture with your own way, it will be again to be settled in the stable position. So
Yes.
how do you think about perfectionism? I'm just wondering about your thought.
Perfection. So as I told you, I don't like to make a division. So like artists, generally people think the artist is searching for something perfect and but I'm more like interested in ephemeral and like vulnerable things and as I told you, through art I'm learning till I die how this word is there are a lot more things to learn, because especially in this perilous and in an unexpected word, I think I'm not interested in meditation or like quiet contemplation, but I really want to have a more adventurous life to learn more about culture. But people expect me like, oh, you do like meditation, and then you are like a cultural ambassador, or to deliver the beauty of Korean tradition to the world. But I don't think I'm
We know that.
So
And you know, I asked all the artists of the Biennale to make a list of their favorite books. It was an idea inspired by Walter Benjamin, and because I was so impressed by this book where he made the list of all the books he collected and read. Because according to me, it was like a self-portrait, you know.
yeah.
And so, can you tell us what are the books that you selected and that are now in our catalog and our?
Oh my gosh, it's quite long
you,
ago.
you forgot maybe? Or
Yeah, I forgot because it was
no,
quite
but some
long.
of them just to see what nourishes you and what is your something that you relate to. And
I have the list if you want.
she knows
Fine.
everything.
And I try my best to learn more about my own culture because, you know, I met lots of, you know, very nice and wonderful people who knows too much about like Asian culture and Korean culture. So probably there is a book about Korean ancient history.
Yeah.
So, you know.
There is one.
You quoted something which is extremely French, by the way. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, Le phénomène humain. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who was very much into the idea that there was something, you know, a sort of God, but which would be, let's say, transferable into something more material. So, is it something that that you relate to, or is a case also in
Well,
in the history of Catholicism?
Well, you know, okay, my life is quite limited, so the books are kind of window to the world. So, you know, the most of the time, you know, I spare my time for reading. But recently, I was really busy. But I have lots of books that I ordered. So when I
That
go
are
back,
waiting for you.
waiting for me to nourish my.
Yeah, but this one, and for example, the book of Joseph Amato, Dust, A History of the Small and Invisible, it's again about something that is a speculation about what exists and what disappears. So
Yes.
it seems a sort of, you know, as my mentor, Aral Ziman, used to say, we just live with one or two obsessions.
Right. Right.
Curators and artists.
Yeah, right.
So, and filmmakers. And, you know, so it sounds to be something where you always go and come back.
Well, I think my interest always
But please
changing.
contradict me because it's too easy.
Yeah, but at the time, you know, those are the books that I was so influenced. So, you know, inside of me, like, it's a. I'm sorry.
Yes,
I
please.
always, you know, that don't reply properly. But later we can have more time to chat.
Perfect.
No, I wanted, the reason I'm asking this question somewhat selfishly because I'm actually making a movie called Venice Lives. And it's about a number of things, but really it's about how one deals with mortality, since it's the only thing we all know is going to happen to all of us. Maybe some of us at the table still think we may get away with beating it, but usually one accepts past the age of 9 or 10 that one is going to join the rest of the people who've been on the planet since it started, and they've ended up dying eventually. So I wanted to ask you, and I would like to ask you that same question as well, actually. Do you think about death a lot? Does it obsess you? Are you aware of it every day? And how do you deal with it? How do you deal with the notion that you're at some point not going to exist?
Well, I have never had a
I can maybe answer because she's not into death thing.
From now on, I will, you know, hold it as a Buddhist monk question, and that'll be really like important for my next journey. So, yeah, I've never. Up to now, my concern has been how can I exist in this moment. Because when I think about my future, too much worries. When I think about my past, oh my gosh, I can. So heartbreaking, and so there's too much anxieties, and so that work, like in the Arsenale, the translated vase, so and other drawings and paintings. How can I exist this moment to moment, like, and feel this moment with you, like fully? So I don't.
Yeah, that's a wonderful answer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And Christine?
I'm a very, very much hic et nunc person.
Here
Ici
and
et
now.
maintenant, here and now, in my daily life. But as in another dimension, I think death is always there for me. It's not something somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid, I had this consciousness very early, and it never really stressed me. But the only thing is the loss. It's not the death, a near death,
Yeah.
you know? Your death, you're not even sure to be there.
Yeah.
to experience it, because it's something that is totally unknown, even if there are so many speculation about, after-death experience and so on. I am more speculative in the sense, not of Teilhard de Chardin, but more considering that we are made of matters, of even electrons, neutrons, and so on.
Right.
Right.
And even if there is no so-called life or consciousness after death, let's say, our matter will join the rest of the matter.
Yeah.
And if only this I consider as something extremely beautiful.
Yeah.
Just to,
Yeah.
because the moment you dissolve or disappear, disappearance is also something beautiful. And I cannot consider the joy of the presence without thinking of the beauty of something that disappears, like a bird in the sky or something.
Yeah.
So I think it's more important for me to live in the consciousness of this, and the fact that we belong not only to the earth but also to the universe and to the cosmos that began 50 billion years ago, with still a mystery at its origin. So that's something that is so magical and so much about life and death, that just being part of this cycle, for me, it's not something that I'm afraid of. I'm just like so excited sometimes just thinking of the fact that I'm alive.
Yeah. I think the actual age of the cosmos is supposedly...
The microphone, Christine, James.
I think the actual age of the cosmos is 13.4 billion years. I don't know how the fuck they know that, but apparently
they calculate a lot. But the thing
billion.
which is amazing is that 10 minutes 35 seconds after the Big Bang, nobody knows what happens, you know? And that's still something that is, to me, fascinating, because this is the moment in which suddenly a matter that was totally concentrated suddenly had a too high entropy and exploded to create our universe. So I'm for it, you know. I'm for being part of this. This is so amazing that we are just so...
Right. We're all part of this
Beautiful.
part of this mystery floating through time and space, and that's why I think the Biennale and all forms of art, of creating things, are in a way a kind of noble spit in the wind. It may come back and hit us in the face, but at least we've expectorated and we've made some claim to our place on Earth, to our time, to our moment in time. And I think when I listen to you talking about the way you create and being in your own world, I mean, I have to feel it's a tremendous gift to be able to create things. I mean, I don't know how I would survive myself without feeling I was able to do that. And I know there are 99% of humanity needs to just get by and survive and eat and support a family and live from one day to the next. And there's something noble in that struggle, but to have the additional ability to make something that you feel is somehow getting outside the bondage of the self is particularly thrilling, wherever it leads. And anyway, it's a great occasion here to be sitting with a bunch of people who are still alive. As opposed to being with a bunch of corpses.
On the left side, some questions or reactions or coffee moment.
There's one more question. Yeah,
Okay.
please.
From what I understand, you kind of only grew up with the ability to have books in front of you to see porcelain or styles of that. But have you ever been inspired by, I see that you mostly like white ceramics by Delft or French faience of the period. Have you ever thought of using that incorporating that in your art? And the second question is, you mentioned about the 80s, and I'm wondering if you were ever exposed to or have seen like Julian Schnabel's plate, where it's really deconstructed purposely and then reconstructed, and how you feel about that, because it's really like rough and yours is more gentile and smooth and demure in your style.
Wow. So I think that you can talk more about that issue because.
My question was, have you ever did you see it in the 80s? Did you see
Yes.
pictures of it? And
Not in Korea. I think I visited several museums. The ceramics museum
in Sèvres?
in Paris.
In Paris.
In Paris, I visited and I was so mesmerized by the very fine and elegant and fine and so elaborate product. Someday I really want to do a collaboration with. But I heard that there's not much.
But come to France, to Paris. We're gonna help you to do something with French porcelain.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, the Julian Schnabel's painting, it's great. He's such a great painter. I really love his painting. And recently,
Where did you see them?
see them on book first, and then when I travel, in several museums, I encountered his painting. And recently, I think his work was shown at Pace Gallery in Korea, in Seoul. So I saw his painting again. It's really great, but we shared only the material, the ceramic, but I think we don't share the ideas, and that his master, right? So I cannot find any connection between my work and to his work.
I think we have time for maybe one last question. There's one down there. Yes. Sorry, I can't see you from here.
I was
You're
really
at the end of the road.
I was really pleased that the conversation was kind of drifting towards entropy and matter.
Would you please speak
hello?
slowly, because
Okay,
I'm not a
sorry.
native,
Okay.
so it's hard to understand.
Okay. I was really pleased that the conversation was drifting towards kind of matter and entropy and that kind of existence, because I feel there is a synergy between that thinking and your work. You resurrect objects that are, have been cast away, and you repurpose them and you build them into other structures, kind of how, energy and matter can never be destroyed. It can only be, transferred. And how, we are all built of matter that is all being created in a star. So that's the kind of unifying bond. And I really feel that, especially your kind of ceramic work represents that. And how fixing seems to be one of the kind of main narratives that weaves throughout your work. And I was just interested to know if you find yourself fixing like anything, like any kind of day-to-day objects in your normal life that you wouldn't normally fix. I wonder if, like your washing machine, or like, do you find this applying
I
that
think about
thought to
That's a very, very important question. I think I learned a lot from you. So thank you for your question. But recently, just I work because I work hard. Yeah, and as an artist, the goal is to be a different person, not a better person, different person from yesterday, because world is changing and my environment slightly changing. Temperature is getting higher, everything is changing. So I really want to be a different person. And so the fixing or mending is not my issue. That's for other, artists or other people's issue. Mine is, the celebrating the vulnerability and see the, metaphysical order or metaphysical structure that was hidden, and that's really rule the force of nature, and just showing me the reality of the world.
Okay. I think this might be a wonderful answer.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kristen.
With which to end this Tavola Aperta. So I would like to thank, first of all, Yee Sookyung for coming and sharing so much with us, Christine Marcel for being here, and also James Taubach. Thank you. And of course, all our guests who participated, everyone who participated and making this conversation so interesting and compelling. And enjoy the exhibition.
Thank you to you, Anya.
Thank you so much, Anya. So thank you very much.